Good afternoon. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Franchising 101, Starting a Business Through a Franchise, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network with FranNet of Virginia and DC. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Heather Rosen, President of FranNet of Virginia and DC. Heather is a franchise specialist from longtime SBDC resource partner and the creator of the SBDC's FranFit program, FranNet. Heather began her career as a lawyer, advising businesses on contractual matters and litigation strategy, and then ran marketing and business development teams for large international law firms. In 2009, she left legal services to go into business for herself through a franchise. Now the owner of 2 franchises, Heather conducts franchise education workshops for the Virginia SBDC and several other organizations. She provides coaching on how to make the transition from employee to entrepreneur and offers guidance to people researching full-time, active, semi-passive, or large-scale area development franchise opportunities. Please join me in welcoming Heather Rosen.
Thank you so much for that nice introduction, Sheila. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking time out to learn about this really interesting industry today, franchising. I've been living in this industry since 2009 as an advisor and also as a franchisee myself. I have 2 franchises, my most recent one being a travel franchise that I run part-time with a partner. But one of the things that I really like about this industry that really drew me into it in the first place is the fact that as a former lawyer, there's, evidence that you can collect about franchises to make a really well-informed decision about whether this is something you want to do or not. And so I've drank my own Kool-Aid and went into business twice through a franchise. It's the safest way to go into business, but it doesn't work for everybody. Some people love it, but some people don't love it. And hopefully, one of the things that you'll learn today is kind of whether you might be somebody who would be happy as a business owner through the franchise or not. So let me just say a couple of words about FranNet that Sheila mentioned. So we have been the SBA's or the SBDC's resource partner on franchising for a really, really long time. I worked through FranNet. I got into the franchise advisory business through FranNet, and I still do it now because they are my source of information about franchises. There are thousands of them out there. And just like your stockbroker or investment advisor needs to know about what all the investment opportunities are in order to tell you here are the best ones, I need to know that as an advisor to people who are searching for the best business opportunity. And the legwork on, researching the opportunities out there is tremendous. And so I rely on FranNet the way that your investment advisor relies on their research department or a third party in order to get people the most up-to-date information on the franchise opportunities, the best franchise opportunities available in the United States. And I live in Northern Virginia, so obviously my focus is on the DC metro area and the rest of the state. And, I have the luxury, unlike when I was a lawyer, when I billed people for every 6 minutes that I talk to them, um, through this advisory service, I have the luxury of being able to talk to people for no cost. That's because the franchises view me almost like a recruiter for them, so that when we talk about, hey, this would be a good business for you to go and research, and I teach you how to do it. If you happen to go through the process and my recommendations were correct, the franchises will actually pay me like a placement fee, the way that recruiters get paid. So I can give you the best, most up-to-date information on this area, and not have to charge anybody a penny. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is, I'm going to actually ask you to take a step back, because we are going to talk about franchises, but I also want to say something about business ownership, because like there are not, everybody isn't a great fit for a franchise. Not everybody makes a good business owner. So I'm going to give you some things to think about there. Then I'm going to talk about the different ways you can get into business, including a franchise, so that you can get a sense of what the right path might be for you. Some of you might not be that familiar with the franchise model, so I'm going to briefly cover that as well. And then I'm going to talk about the process for finding a franchise, what kinds of things to avoid, what the cost range is. This is also an area where there's a big misconception. Some funding options you might not have considered or known about, and then just how to get started. If you really, think that, I would say that nobody goes into this knowing for sure that they're going to end up as a franchisee, which is a franchise owner. You should go into this process open-minded, being okay with other suggestions, and also okay with realizing at the end of this isn't the path for me. This is about finding the right business for the right person, and figuring out, like I said, if you're even a good franchisee candidate for any franchise. So taking a further step back, and this is where I would love to hear from some of you in the chat. What is it that is appealing to you? I would love to hear, just and share. It's not with me, but with everybody too. What are you interested in? What do you think you would like to achieve by being a business owner? What are you hoping to get out of it? How would your life be better? Um, and when I used to do this program in person, we used to go around the room. We don't have that kind of time today, but I would love to see what you put into the chat. Some ideas. These are things that people will say in answer to this question a lot of times. They'll talk about things like, and the reason the success is at the top is because really what you're saying is, I want to be successful, and I want to be successful as a business owner because this is what it's going to give me. I think it's really important to be very clear about your motivation and your goals for this. So, some people will say, I just want to be fulfilled. It's just something I've always wanted to do. Some people say, I would, like to have flexibility because I've got, a boss that is constantly micromanaging me, or I have hours to keep. I'd like a much more flexible schedule. I'd like to be able to take longer vacations and not be back at work after just 7 days. Some people just, don't want a boss anymore. And I would say these reasons for going into business, they may not be strong enough to be truly motivating. Because remember, when you're in business, either independently or through a franchise, you don't have a boss anymore. And so you have to self-motivate. And what typically is really motivating is having a really big, important goal that, you're going to try something, try it again, try it again. It works because you've done your research, but you're going to keep trying because you know how important it is for you to achieve that goal. I will say that in terms of flexibility, there are some people who need a flexible schedule. It's not just a nice to have. They need flexibility because, let's say, they're caring for a child with special needs, or a parent who has some, medical needs. A lot of us are in that sandwich generation, and they really need to be somebody who can go to doctor's appointments with people. I remember, going through a period, a 3-month period with my daughter where she was trying to get diagnosed, and we were going to doctors almost every day. And I thought, thank God I'm a business owner, because I would be fired by now if I had to take all this time off while taking her to doctor's appointments. So some people do need the flexibility, but if it's just something that you would like to have, it may not be motivating enough. In contrast, the things that you see at the bottom here, feeling like, you must have control of your ability to earn money or control of your schedule, because you've already started to see the cracks, the things that have happened when you haven't been in control of how much money you make, or you haven't been in control of your schedule. And, sometimes related to that is financial security. Layoffs are starting to happen a little bit more than they were a year or two ago, especially in the tech industry. And so there are a lot of people who are looking around saying the AI situation is not going to improve my chances of keeping a job. It could potentially, really hurt my chances of being able to keep a job, company relocations, outsourcing, all of that. And people feel like I need to control how much money I can bring into my household. I am partially or fully responsible for that. And so I need to secure my financial situation. People who've been through layoffs, it's awful. I don't know if you've ever been laid off before, but even though it might have nothing to do with your performance as an employee, companies make these decisions all the time. And it's really hard to be the person who's lost their job and suddenly, how do we pay the mortgage? How do we pay for rent? How do we pay for the car? And then you have to tell people, oh yeah, I've been laid off, and they're going to, assume whatever they want to assume about the reasons for that. So a lot of people just say, I never want to be in that position again. I want to own my job. And then just not making enough money. I'm going to assume that everybody on this webinar can relate to this. Costs are higher for whatever reason. They're higher. They are higher. The dollar doesn't go as far. Some salaries have gone up, not all have, but even the ones that have gone up, really, they still don't really cover all of the expenses. I think we're all feeling that crunch of not having enough disposable income. And so there are a lot of people right now who are starting businesses. Some of them are keeping their jobs and starting businesses, and we'll talk about that. But they're starting businesses because they just need to bring more money into the household. And that could be a critical reason. Again, if it's not just a nice to have, but you can say, if I don't make this much money, much more money, we won't be able to afford college. We won't be able to afford a wedding. I will not be able to retire anytime soon and enjoy my family, the grandkids, and the things that we always said we were going to enjoy in retirement. I don't see an end to this road. That could be a really motivating reason to take action and start something. And I just say this, actually, I've kept this slide in my presentation for a very long time. There's always change. I think a lot of people right now are talking about the election and what could happen if this candidate or that candidate wins. Whatever change there is, there's always opportunities. It's all about looking for what those opportunities are. This is a quote from Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE. This was his philosophy: is we're just going to keep looking for the opportunities, and that's how GE became such a huge success. But this is actually a photo that I took during COVID, when even that horrible situation became, an opportunity. I reconnected with my friends from high school. We're closer than we ever were before. This photo is of the place where my husband, my daughter, and I worked out of a resort hotel room for 2 weeks. We didn't have this view at home. We had this view from the resort that we were able to afford because they had such incredible rates during COVID. And they gave us a double room, which included an office, and it was actually pretty phenomenal. So look for the opportunities. Don't focus on the fear of what could lie ahead. The opportunities are always there. So now I want to talk about, if you go into business, is a franchise right for you? Let's say you've said, yes, I've got some really compelling reasons to start a business, either full time or maybe, semi passively with a manager while I have a day job and benefits. Right now. So then you have to look at, how do you want to go into business? So the three options: start from scratch, your own thing, your own ideas. A lot of people do this on a shoestring from a home office. Another option is you have some money, so you can look for a business to buy that somebody else has started. And then the third option is to buy a business open up a business through a franchise, buy a license from a franchise and open up one of their businesses. And actually, franchises, you may not know this, they end up being businesses that have a contract with a franchise organization. So those businesses actually can also get sold. I have a secret resale list that I send out to people who subscribe to it. I'll have my contact information at the end if you're interested. But sometimes I do hear about franchises that um, are, people have started, they own. I know it's a good franchise, but somebody for one reason or another is selling, and I will send that information out to my list. So franchises are just businesses that have a contract. You can buy and sell those too. But let's talk about these three options now. Starting a business from scratch, I mean, this is normally the cheapest way to do it. It is the most, there are no rules. Nobody collects any money from you. You're in total control and make all the decisions. If you want to take your business in a completely different direction, nobody tells you not to. You can shut that business down whenever you decide to do it. And if you make it in the business, you keep all the profits, right? That's the good side of it. The downside is, a lot of these businesses don't make it. And when they make it, if you know anybody who started a business on their own without anyone's help, if you haven't already, ask them how long it took them to make any kind of decent money. It's typically a minimum of 10 years. I used to go around the room and ask people this question, and I never heard a number less than 10, and sometimes it was more than 10. And the reason for that is, people who start businesses on their own, unless they've already run the same business for someone else and they've waited out their non-compete, there's really a lot of trial and error. And so they're creating the systems. There's, we're going to try this. Oh, it didn't work. Or we tried this and it worked, but didn't work great. So maybe we have to go back and research a new vendor or have a better website. Um, and yes, you can go to the SBDC, of course, for help, but they can help you on some, general business things. But when you're talking about, when people open up businesses on their own, a lot of times it's something really new and unusual. And so what are the odds of you finding somebody who opened up that exact same business and they were successful and now they're working for the SBDC? Not very high. So there's a lot of things that you're not going to be able to turn to people for help. The banks, by the way, unless you've already run those businesses, that kind of business for somebody else, it's going to be really hard to get funding because the bank knows what the failure rates look like. And the odds are not really in your favor. I mean, people will do this if go back. People will do this if they don't really need the money. I mean, I would say the people who start a business from scratch, they already have a job and they're doing something on the side. And if they don't make it, oh, well, we tried. Or it's a young person who's living in mom and dad's basement and they don't have any rent, they don't have any kids to support. And so let's try this. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just go get a job. That's typically who starts businesses from scratch because of the fact that the odds of success are just they're not great. Other people will go into business by buying somebody else out. And the banks certainly like this a lot more because they can see some historical results. You can get a sense of cash flow and goodwill, which are, two of the main things that they look at to value the value of a business to buy. And a lot of people are attracted to established businesses because, well, we already have a location, there's already a customer list, right? And the owner is going to be there to help me, and they're already employees, and so it seems very turnkey. And another thing, by the way, is that if the seller, the owner of the business, really wants to sell, he or she may self-finance. They might, give you a note and take back a note and say, just pay me a little bit and then pay the rest over this period of time, right? Again, it's typically the people who are very motivated sellers, who will do something like that. And I'm telling you this because it could be attractive, but also it could be a red flag. The disadvantage is it's very, very hard to really calculate with cash flow. And that becomes even more challenging if it's a cash-based business. A lot of times, cash-based businesses, they have two sets of books, especially if they are, a lot of retail businesses will pay rent partial. There's a flat rent, and then there's partial rent based on their profit or their cash flow, how much, or sales, I guess. Um, there are a lot of businesses that keep two sets of books, uh, and hopefully the one where they submit information to the IRS is correct, but not always. But I mean, it's, as somebody who's evaluating this business, remember, you're talking to a seller. If you are looking at buying somebody's business, the person you're having conversations with is incentivized to get you to buy. And there are not a lot of consequences if they sugarcoat or misrepresent even information to you. And so you really have to be a sleuth. The other thing is, part of what you buy is something called goodwill, which is the customer list, which is going to be some, evidence that if you buy this business, you will have customers right away. But how do you know that customers are coming back? There's a lot of reasons that somebody might have bought once or twice. It could have been a coupon, a great coupon, or a Groupon. It could have been because there was some free item or items being given away. It could be somebody who was just really close with the seller, the owner. And once there's a new owner, I'm not, not going to feel as loyal to the business anymore. So it's hard. It's really, really hard to gauge what the goodwill, what you're really inheriting as a potential new owner of the business. And owners, people, when they sell their business, um, there's always a reason. And, I would say that if you're talking to somebody who isn't clearly, retirement age or looks really ill, they're young and healthy, whatever they tell you is their reason for selling the business, there's probably something else. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're going to lie, but I will say that they will sugarcoat and make it seem like, I would have kept doing this forever, but something happened and now I want to do something else, or I have to do something else. But they won't tell you about the pain points. And that's where, again, you really have to be a sleuth and go in assuming that there are some things that potentially you have to fix in the business. Most of the businesses for sale, there's something currently that has to be fixed, or something that the seller knows is gonna have to be fixed in the near future. It could be they know that their rent is about to go up, or they know that there's, something coming to the area that's going to significantly cut into their customer base, right? Also, your employees, you walk into a location, employees are there, they might not want to work for you anymore. Or for you, they might have wanted to work for the previous owner, or that could be one of the pain points. The owner might know that some of the employees are getting ready to leave. A lot of times people don't like change. If they liked the owner, they might not, trust that you're going to be as good a boss. So employees can leave for a number of reasons. Also, a lot of business people will tell you that when they acquire more businesses, they will oftentimes just, get rid of employees because they know that the problems the business is having are probably tied to employees. So I would say, don't acquire a business if it's primarily because of the employees. Also, if you have to take out a loan in order to buy the business, you're going to have interest to pay back and principal to pay back to the bank. So as you calculate the profitability of this business you're evaluating, don't forget to factor that in and see if there's enough profit after you pay off the bank too. And finally, owners, people who you're going to buy the business from, they're not all great trainers. In fact, as soon as they are not contractually obligated to help you as the current owner, they might be gone. They're on to the next phase of their life, and you might have a very hard time getting a response from them in the future. So keep that in mind. And I would say that, as I told you, franchises can also be an existing business that people sell. A lot of this is also true with franchises. I would say the biggest difference is your trainer is not, it can be the owner, but it's really the franchisor. You're going to go through the same kind of training that a brand new franchisee would go through. So you don't have to just rely on the person who sold you the business. And the other thing is that while there are going to be some hidden seller motives, when you research a franchise, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, you actually, even if it's an existing business that you're evaluating, you can talk to people who are not the seller. You can talk to other franchisees and find out how good the business is. A lot of times people who sell franchises, the franchise is fine. It's a good business. They know how to make money, but this is not the best operator for one reason or another. And so when you talk to other franchisees, you can figure out how easy it would be. First of all, what their perspective is as to why this particular location might be for sale, but you can also get their perspective on what it would take and how much money would it take to turn it around. It's not just the pain of having to fix things. A lot of times there's a price tag attached to it. Okay. So let's talk about franchises specifically. And I'm going to start with the disadvantages because I really want to, for those of you who are thinking, okay, I love the branding, I love the back office, I love all the technology. Okay, let's start up talking about you first. Number one bullet here, you must be a system follower. You must follow the system to be successful in a franchise. Now, franchises are all different, not just in terms of industry, not just in terms of cost, but some franchises have a lot of rules, while some franchises don't have a lot of rules, but they all have some. They all have some rules. And if you find that you are somebody who doesn't like to follow rules, just likes to do things your own way, you'll listen to people, you'll do the research, but ultimately it's going to be your way, this is probably not for you. There are going to be some things, and even though again, you might have researched the heck out of this business and found that 90% of the people in the franchise are happy, would do it again, are growing, etc. You have to follow that system. It's got to be you. And every franchise has failures, and generally the people who don't make it are the people who don't follow the system. They're just doing things their way, and they're wondering, why am I not making a lot of money? And this is why. So this is the number one common element among all franchisees, is you have to be somebody who is a system follower. I'll add to this, and this is why I spend so much time on that. What's your reason for going into business? The people who are the most persistent and their system followers, guess what? They tend to be the top people in the top franchises. So, think about how much of a motivation you have for making this happen. There are usually sales goals. Now, franchises usually award exclusive rights to run the business in a certain geographic area. If you do get exclusive rights, there are some exceptions. Generally, business-to-business franchises don't have exclusive rights, and that's because businesses, often have, your customer is businesses. Your business could have multiple locations, so it's harder for them to award exclusive rights. But if you do have exclusive rights to a geographic area, you can count on the fact that your franchise agreement is going to say nobody else is going to run the business here. However, we expect that you're going to do this much in sales at a minimum every year. And then you go and research that and you figure out, is that a low bar or a high bar? But again, if you're not a system follower, it doesn't matter how low that bar is, you might not get there. So just expect that, you're going to get all these rights, but then there are responsibilities on the other side of it. Um, and you can, there's a contract here. There are franchise fees that you pay. Franchise, by the way, there's a one-time franchise fee that you pay to get into a franchise. And then there's a renewal fee. Franchise agreements are generally 10 years long. And then at the end of 10 years, if you want to continue, you renew. And there's usually, it's not the franchise fee. It's usually not that much, but there is some sort of renewal fee. You do get a new contract. The contract's going to be a little bit different because 10 years later, they probably have more people in the home office that are working for you. So you pay that, but it's a choice that you have. You can also get out of a contract. I mean, I don't know a lot of franchisors who want to hold people in a contract who don't want to be in there. But, unlike having your own business, you still have to have a conversation, have a negotiation with your franchisor to end the contract. Or you can sell the franchise. And hopefully that's the way you get out of it, is you get some money out of it when you exit the business. But you do pay a one-time franchise fee and you do pay royalties. And royalties is it's the lifeblood of a franchise. It's what pays for the people in the corporate office to work for you, and it gives the owners of the franchise a little bit of a profit. It is a business. It's not a not-for-profit. There has to be something that motivates the owners, or else they're not going to continue to make your business better and better. And I would say this is one of the sticking points, I would say, for some people, and that's where they stop. They just say, I don't want to pay anyone. I don't want to pay a franchise fee, and I don't want to pay a royalty. And I understand that. But I will say this. I mean, if you look at most franchises and people who go into business through a franchise, and you compare that to people who started this business on their own, franchisees usually, not always, but usually make a lot more money and they make it quicker. So for some people, the fact that they have to swallow that pill of paying the one-time franchise fee, to them, it is because the ramp up for that is a lot quicker. So they're making money usually, more than the franchise fee, quicker than they would if they had tried to do it on their own. That's how they justify it. Almost if you, went back to school to get a degree to go into a new field, right? Or if you hired a coach who had industry expertise before you open up your retail shop, which some people do if they've never been in retail, they'll pay a coach to help them open and not make mistakes, because hey, they're putting their life savings into this business. The franchisor serves that purpose. And in terms of the royalty, I pay a lot of money in royalties every year to two franchises. You have to look at what you're getting. You literally have people who are working for you in exchange for this royalty. And so you want to look at, are they producing something that helps you make more money in your business? If so, you might want to do that. And if not, you wouldn't go into business with that franchise. Okay. Um, Protected territories that I was talking about before, it is listed under disadvantages only because, there are some people, they don't want to be limited by their territory. They want to be able to do business anywhere. As I said, there are some businesses where you can still do business anywhere, but a lot of franchises, it's protected territory. It's a pro and a con. It just really depends on what's important to you. I mean, if you're never going to feel successful unless you start a company and take it national or global, this is probably not the business model for you. But if you're somebody who just wants to have some of those things or all of those things that I listed on that previous slide, then, maybe take a look at this. And then the last thing I have here under disadvantages, something to be aware of, because I get a lot of questions about, of course, Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and all of the franchises. I used to get a lot of questions about Subway. not as much anymore since Subway has been in the news recently, and it's been some not very favorable news about Subway. But I still get sometimes people ask about Subway. Just remember that when something goes wrong, if somebody eats a hamburger or a sandwich and gets sick or worse, or gets burned, or something else happens, even if it didn't happen to your location, that is going to reflect on you. People are going to stop coming to your location because of what happened in Iowa. So it's a two-edged sword. And I'm going to show you it's not even necessary. Having a franchise that's well known, it's nice to have, but it's really not the first thing to start looking for. Um, and then in terms of advantage, proven, you have a team behind you, quicker startup, quicker profitability, um, as long as you pick the right franchise. I mean, this is where you really have to know what to look for. But they all offer initial training. A good franchise is going to offer ongoing training. They're going to be looking at software improvements. Either, they're gonna go and do the whole proposal deal with vendors. Maybe they'll create something in-house. I see a lot of franchises today leveraging AI for good in order to bring in more business. But you have your corporate office, you have all of the people who they work with, their vendor relationships that they've built, where they've written the contracts, they administer that. None of that is on you as a business owner. That's all done for you. You have access to colleagues who do the same thing as you, which is really, really nice to be able to say, type an email or a text and say, hey, how did you deal with this? Or do you have something I can use for this event? And you're not competing against each other because the franchise has hopefully set it up so that you feel like you want to share, because you're not going to lose business if I share my best practices with you. And then the last thing here, which is I think is important, is the fact that franchises are the only type of business that you can go into with other people where there's some regulation. There's consumer protection regulations around them. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, regulates franchises similarly to the way that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, regulates securities, stocks and bonds. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they have to file. In Virginia, they have to refile every year. So the information that you get when you're investigating a franchise is no more than a year old, and they have to disclose all kinds of things, all kinds of, if there's any bad stuff, litigation, a lot of turnover, that all has to be disclosed. They have to give it to you before you sign a franchise agreement or before you pay your franchise fee. And the other thing about this document, which is really nice, and a lot of people don't know this, is that document has a list of all of their franchisees in it and their contact information, not just the top people, but everybody. And it shows you who left the franchise within the past year. So as part of your diligence, you can dig in and interview other franchisees and find out what their experience has been, how much money they've made, what the startup costs were, what they like and don't like about their franchisor, and a lot more than that. And a quick franchise primer. I mean, you have your headquarters, you have your franchisees, which could potentially be you, and then you have your customers. For the franchisor, they became your franchise probably started as just a company, and they said, what if we sold this product or this service? And along the way, somebody probably suggested you could franchise this model. This business is very franchisable. And, for a franchise, it's a business decision for them. I mean, ultimately, when they franchise, they give up control, some of the control over their reputation. And they also give up money because the money is coming into you, not to them. You're paying them a royalty, but still the majority of the profit is going to the franchisees. And so it's something that businesses typically don't do lightly. I mean, sometimes businesses think that, oh, I'm just going to franchise. But then when they really talk through what it takes, it's a big process for them to become a franchise. And a good franchise, I mean, they do it because they can grow their company very quickly by other people opening up locations with their products, with their name, and et cetera. But there's also some risk involved, and they need a pretty big infrastructure, bigger than what they started with, in order to have a franchise operation. So there's really risk on both ends. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about franchises that, oh, this company just wants to take my money. And again, while in every business, I guess you're going to have some players that go into it with that. With most franchises, they're really just trying to grow, trying to make a little bit of money while growing their business. And, they're hoping at one point, that it's going to be a really, really big business without them having had to have raised capital every single time they open up a new location. So I don't know if that's new for somebody. Oops. Oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. That's why it's happening. Okay. So today there are thousands of franchises out there, and you may know mostly about food and tax businesses and maybe some fitness franchises like Orange Theory, but there's actually over 100 different industries, and I've just talked about three. So there's a lot that people don't know about. I make it my business to know about them. Of course, not every business is going to be available near you, and most people want to open up at least their first location somewhere near them so that they can they can at least manage their employees easily if they have employees. Not all franchises do. Um, Not all franchises are able to open up in Virginia. Virginia decides which franchises they will allow to expand in the state, and there's some that are kicked out of the process, the registry, because their track record hasn't been great. Um, Also, certain types of businesses, whether they're a franchise or not, it's difficult to get a license to run those kinds of business. So it's another consideration. I mean, sometimes in certain home services businesses, for example, you need a contractor's license, and that's not always easy to get. Sometimes you need years of experience in the industry. And the franchises, sometimes they have a workaround. Sometimes you can utilize a franchisee in another state or in the headquarters, in order for that to be your contract license person. And then after you've personally had the business for a couple of years, you can apply for your own. But you have to understand that that could be an issue. And the franchise, they kind of know in each state, or they should know what it takes to actually be open for business. But of course, not every franchise has a good track record. Not every franchise has any, some franchises are new at franchising, so they don't have a track record. And, I would say those businesses are only for the least risk adverse people. Very few of my clients are really in that category. It might be exciting to you to be the first franchisee of a business, but they might not even have a franchise program in 2 years. They might try it. Starbucks did this. They tried franchising to allow individual people to open, and they realized it's not working out, and they shut that down. So the support that those existing franchise, I'm not sure what happened to their franchisees. Maybe they phased them out after their contract ended, but they stopped the franchise program. And so for the people who were already franchisees, I don't know what kind of support they got or are currently getting. And then of course, not every business does well. Not and everybody has a different definition of success. At the top of that slide was success. It's going to be a different definition for everybody. How much money do you need to make? How quickly do you need to make that? So not every business is going to allow you to do what you personally are trying to achieve. So here's some things to think through. And by the way, as Sheila was saying, you can request a copy of this recording, a link to the recording, and go through this again and pause the recording. And so, feel free, don't feel like you have to take notes through the whole thing, but these are the things to think through as you're evaluating business and evaluating, is this the best business for me? can I prove that it's a good system? Does it have a track record of making enough money for me, what I'm trying to achieve? Can I legally open it in my area? Is it available, or is good territory still available? Because it might, an older franchise might not have good territory. If it has any territory at all near you, it might not be the best territory. I have a client who has been looking at opening up some 7-Elevens, and it's very hard to find. And it's not even, I don't feel that it's even the best franchise, but this is something that somebody is interested in. And so they've been working with the company to open up a location, and he's moving to an area that I'm not sure that I would want to move to. So, is there any good availability near you? Is this a business that has a product or service that people or businesses need or will need? And hopefully it's both. And then, is this the right business for you? And I'm going to talk about that some more. But these are all the things to think through to determine whether you really can be successful in this business. Some other things to look for, how experienced is this franchise? Simplicity. It's really a personal question. Is this simple enough for you? What's the learning curve going to be like for you? People don't realize you don't necessarily need industry experience in a franchise. There are some exceptions to that rule, but in most franchises, a lot of franchises don't even want to give people from the industry a license to open, because they find it very hard to train those people, because they'll just default to the ways that they did things previously and not follow the training. But there's got to be some skills that carry over. You have to start with at the very least, the right skill set, and it's going to be a different skill set needed in different businesses. I will say that every franchise will offer some level of initial training. Look for that plus ongoing training, ongoing support. When you talk to franchisees, ask them about these things. As I was saying before, name recognition is nice to have, but the reality is that in your market, if you're opening up your business in Springfield, Virginia, the franchise might, and this is something, again, you can ask franchisees about, is how hard is it to make myself known in my market, which is all you really care about. In some cases, the franchise already has a fantastic grand opening program, and in weeks you could be very, very much recognized in your market. So it's not as important as you might think. Also, the flip side of that is, if you open up a business like Subway or McDonald's, something like that, the press that you get, the free press that you don't pay for, is probably not going to be that great. It's not that exciting that we're getting another one of these businesses. Whereas if you are the first location of a successful California-based business to open up here, that probably will get a lot of press, because that is really exciting to the community. So name recognition could actually play against you. But look for a sales system, people in the office, the home office, who are marketing people, sales people. Especially as the business gets a little bit older, there might be a team of people who are responsible for creating national relationships with great referral partners, so that when you open up your location, or your second or your third location, all you have to say is, "I'm here," and they say, "We know you, we know you're good. Come on in and tell us, leave some brochures behind, and we'll send our customers to you." And then also, I think it's really important to have a culture of teamwork. In my travel business, which is a cruise and land tours and everything like that, we call it cruisitude. And it's interesting, it's one of the few franchises out there where we don't have exclusive territories, and I was worried about that, because I like exclusive territories personally, but they tend to recruit for people, and also really get on top of people who don't play well in the sandbox with others. So talk to other people, other franchisees, when you're doing your diligence about whether there's a culture of teamwork. It's really hard to be in a franchise where other franchisees are competing against you. It's just a negative culture, and even more importantly, you know, you don't have the information sharing that you would really like to have, and you really can have in a good franchise. So some trends right now. I mean, these three main factors are always the case. You always want to look at franchises where they serve a growing market driven by demographics. The two biggest demographic groups I've been doing this since 2009. It's still the same. It's still baby boomers and millennials. You know, maybe in a couple of years we'll see the Gen Z added in there, but right now the people with the money are still baby boomers and millennials. You still want to look for essential products or services, and you still want to look for businesses, franchises, if they serve other businesses, that what they do is they provide something that's really kind of mandatory, that it's something that businesses have to buy, because otherwise you're going to be too susceptible to, you know, businesses and people who don't have a lot of spending money, you know, disposable income. So in terms of growing markets driven by demographics, where baby boomers and or millennials buy things, we like health and wellness businesses. We like businesses that provide a beauty or personal recovery product, a business that does repairs. Right now, one of the trends is um, real estate is really, really expensive. So people are doubling down on, if they already own real estate, they're expanding their house, they're remodeling. It's just too darn expensive to move. This has always been the case, but now I think it's amplified because of the crazy high cost of buying property pretty much anywhere right now. And by the way, the kids are coming back, they're going to want to live with you. So you might want to think about building an extra, you know, additional dwelling unit in your home, or making the basement a lot nicer, because they're not going to be able to afford to buy anything. um, Cleaning businesses, residential, but you're going to see commercial too. Young people don't clean their own houses. Older people eventually can't clean their own houses. And then there's property management businesses out there that, and by the way, these are all franchises, property management business too, where, you know, people buy homes, fixer-uppers, small homes, rent them. There are, you know, a lot of people, that's part of their investment strategy or their wealth building strategy, is to buy these homes and rent them out. Um, Property management companies take care of all of the grunt work. You know, you do have to pay them. So, you know, in terms of being an investor in this, it does cut into your profits, but, you know, increasingly, again, the millennials who don't even want to repair or clean their own house, they really don't want to do that with rental units either. So that is a trend kind of business. Anything essential, of course, this is all we talked about during the pandemic, is what do people have to buy? Here are some of the things that they really have to buy. You have to get your hair cut. You have to get your car fixed. You have to have your pets and children, your fur babies, and taken care of when you're away. If you have a fire or a flood, you have to get that repaired ASAP. And then just the natural things that happen to your house, but also when you're ready to sell your house, all this stuff, you know, flooring, painting, all has to get done. So these are essential services that some franchises provide. And then in the B2B space, there are businesses that sell safety equipment, that rent workspace, that deal with IT issues, including cybersecurity hacks, and then staffing, cost reduction, et cetera, et cetera. These are all really, really strong areas to be in, because remember, businesses are always looking for ways to cut costs. People always want their kids to be cared for and educated, et cetera, et cetera. Offices maintained, the janitorial businesses, staffing businesses. Since I've been doing this work, since 2009, these are always things that people or businesses need that never changes. It doesn't matter who the president is or what pandemic we have, these businesses always, 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 there's a need for them. Now, in terms of you running a business, though, when you're making your choice, and I'm going to talk to you about some things to avoid and think about, but you have choices. I mean, you don't have to have multiple locations to build a multi-million dollar business. That is one way to do it, but not everybody does it that way. Some people do it with one location that moves into larger and larger and larger space, right? Everybody likes the history of established franchises, but with the established franchises, they're along the way, they're going to implement more rules. And so for some people, they can follow rules, they will follow rules, but they really are happier in more flexible business models. You can be semi-passive, like I said, and have a job or other businesses. Most franchises are still ones that want you to start as a full-time owner operator, but not all. So that's an option too. There's also regional and area development for people who want to build a much larger business without having to open up all of the locations themselves. That exists in our area to some degree. Not all franchises have that model, but that's out there. It just depends on what you're looking for. And by the way, here are some of the things when people ask me about the businesses that you can start with a day job or with other businesses. Here are some examples. It doesn't mean that every franchise in this category you can really do that with, but this is what some of the areas where I've seen that. I will say that if you really want to open up a restaurant, if you have to, get into business that way, very unlikely that you're going to be able to do that with a day job or with other businesses, unless another business or is also a restaurant and you already have a management team to run that business. Otherwise, probably not. And anything where you're taking care of young people or old or sick people, very unlikely that you're going to be able to do that if you have a day job or other businesses. Okay. So for you, I mean, think about all of these things. How much money do you need to make? How much money do you have to put into the business? What do you want your life to be like? What kind of flexibility? Do you need flexibility? Do you want a business where you really want to be able to work from anywhere, or are you pretty much a homebody and that doesn't matter to you? And there are other things that are much more important to you. And then, think about how your life might change in 5, 10, or 20 years when, if you have little kids, but they're going to be out of the house, and what kinds of needs you will have then. And you can, if you think about these things now, you're more likely to have a business that you can grow into. Okay. And then in terms of your transferable business skills, you don't have to sell in a franchise, but there are some franchises where you do have to sell. So, when you're evaluating your different options, you think about, what do I do best? And look for franchises where the successful people in that franchise are doing the things that you're good at. It's different for different businesses. Um, there are different characteristics too. Not all franchises require you to have employees. Some people start from home, where there are contractors or sometimes other people in the franchise in the home office who are doing some of the legwork. And with a lot of them, you can eventually have employees, but it's a choice. So, if you managed people or directed people in the past and you just didn't love that part of your job, there are options for you too. You don't have to have employees. But think about, your budget. How much money do you want to leverage? What kind of loan are you really comfortable with? I mean, some people tell me I will, I don't have a limit, but everybody has their limits. I mean, there are some franchises where it could be over $1 million to start, and that would require you to take out a loan bigger than your home loan. So, for your first business or your second business or wherever you are in your portfolio growth process, I mean, think about how much money you want to budget for this next business. And then, what kind of environment do you want to work in? What kind of hours do you want to be working, and what hours do you want to be off? I have people who tell me, I don't want to work on Sundays ever. or I don't want to work in the evenings because that's the only time that I get to spend with my kids, right? And speaking of kids, a lot of people do want a business where they can hire their kids. They've got some teenagers, they want to give them their first really good opportunity because you're going to trust them to do things a lot more so than another employer will, and that could go on their resume, help them get another job. So, is that important to you too? We can look for that depending on what they're interested in, and what their skills are, what they're really good at. If you have a kid who you think might be good at sales and maybe they're not necessarily the best student, but you've seen some really great innate sales skills in your kid. Well, maybe we can find a business where there's a sales position that your kid could be doing, and they can really find something that they're passionate about, good at, and make a lot of money and get them out of your basement one day. And how many locations do you really want to manage? These are people that you're going to have on your payroll that you're not going to be able to see every day, and not everybody's good at managing people, and the ones who aren't always good at managing people that you can't directly see every day. So another thing to think about. And then, who is your customer? If you have a business that has a service for kids or watches kids, it's not, your kid isn't really the customer, it is, but it's really the parents. And some people would say, I don't want to work with the those kinds of parents that are really that intense. And pet businesses too. I mean, pets are great, but are you're gonna maybe be working with some nervous pet parents. So consider that as well. So, and during this process, as I said, you get this full list of franchisees and you can interview them. Most people, when they're researching business options, they want to interview at least six, if not 10. You can interview as many people as you want. Pick a good variety. Yes, you want to talk to the top people because you want to know, what are the top people earning. I mean, you could potentially earn more, but what you can learn is what people are currently earning. But also talk to the people who are more like average, and some people who are struggling too. Every franchise has its top third, middle third, bottom third, but you want to look for businesses where the people who you feel like you're the most like are the top third, and what are they earning, right? Um, Pitfalls. So I get this a lot. People looking for business. I mean, I'd say most people start here, especially if they haven't been through a learning session like this, is they start with the product or the service. And they start with a business that sells something that they really believe in. And a lot of times it's food, because people get very passionate about food. I love this. This is the best pizza, the best burger, etc. Um, it's not that that isn't important, but I really don't think you should start there. You should really start with the business itself. And is this something that is going to give you all of the things that you've said are important for you? Because you can be passionate about a product or service as a consumer, and the business could make your life really miserable. Okay. So don't start there. Also, as I said before, I wouldn't start with businesses where just the businesses anywhere where you have industry experience. The one exception that I mentioned before is actually if you're looking at a restaurant. I will tell you that the most experienced franchisees will only award exclusive territory to people who have managed restaurants before. The younger ones might award to anybody, but the experienced ones know that it's only the people that have been through this before. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the show The Bear. It's a little bit of that in there. Um, but they understand that being the owner of a restaurant business is probably a 7-day a week, uh 18-hour plus a day job with a lot of moving parts. So they tend to recruit from the industry because those people already know. And coming into a restaurant franchise, if you've never, doesn't matter if you've been a server or a maitre d' before, the managers of the restaurants know where all the pitfalls are. And so unless you're coming from, unless you are in the restaurant industry, managing restaurants, going into it, otherwise you might not even start with businesses that are from your industry, because you might not be coachable. You might not be willing to really listen and learn from your franchisor. And then, of course, not having enough money to start, not having enough time to devote, especially at the beginning when you're opening up a business, there's going to be some learning curve. The franchisor might bring the industry experience. You have the other skill set. Even if you're coming from the industry, there's going to be a learning curve, and you have to know that you have enough time to learn all of the things about your business. So, as you're researching businesses, I will say, you are going to have this fear of failure. Everybody does. It's very normal. What did I miss? What questions didn't I ask? But there's so much research you can do on franchises that it should be, kind of a little bit of a leap of faith, but not a huge one going into business. A lot of times, what looks like a big leap of faith is really just you being very nervous about committing to a new thing. And that's also normal, but, some people just don't commit to things. And that's probably also somebody who shouldn't be in business through a franchise. But, there's a lot of research you can do. You can do detailed financial projections. You can run it by the franchisees. They can look at your numbers. Your decision can be based 100% on facts. I don't know of a safer way to get into business, but that's just me. How long does it take to research a franchise? I get this question a lot. If you know how to do this right, and again, I can give you tips and, coach you through it if you want, but if you do this right, it should take you a minimum of 2 months, three on average, from the time that you pick your first set of franchises to research and you actually know how to research them. There's this whole back and forth process where you create your list of requirements, something that we call a business model. You do your due diligence. You go to the home office to meet with the operations team. You figure out if this is looking like it's something that you would want to do, that you would be excited to do. Does it make enough money? If not, you go back, you tweak the search, you go and do it again. During this time, you're starting to look into financing options. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Do some business planning, and then you're ready to launch. But the process of even putting together the business model is going to take you a few weeks to start. And then the research of a franchise is probably going to take you at least 2 months, if not three. It doesn't go quickly. There's so much information that you gather until you get to the facts. So, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to start and someone's going to try to talk me into something, well, they might, but talk to me. I'll make sure that they don't do that, because there's a lot that you can do to really figure out whether these businesses are good businesses for you or not. And in terms of costs, unfortunately, we haven't gotten more recent information from Fran data. I will say that the cost of I specialize, I guess, in businesses that people go into because they're hoping that the business income will support them. Okay, so there are franchises that you can open for less than $50,000. They typically don't support people. There are some exceptions, but if you talk to their franchisees, it's usually side money. If you're looking for a business that can support you, pay your bills anywhere in our state, definitely anywhere in the DC area, you're going to probably spend at least $50,000. That includes the franchise fee and your working capital, because don't forget to factor in working capital as part of your startup costs. If you're thinking about doing anything in retail, even the smallest yoga studio, you're talking about these days at least $250,000. And if you're thinking about anything in food, probably these days at least $350,000, even for the smallest location of the Subway. Chick-fil-A, some people say, well, what about Chick-fil-A? It's a lot less. That's true. 7-Eleven is also less, but these are not traditional franchise models. You don't own the business. You are a kind of a glorified store manager that you have to be there. It's a full-time job, and there's a profit split, but there's no actual business that you started. And if you don't do well as their store manager, they can get rid of you. So, yes, it costs less, but it's not really starting a business. Okay, that's why I don't list that in here. But the good news is that you don't need to invest 250, $350,000 or more to make $250,000. You could do that with a business that's a lot less. It's not going to be like year one, you put $60,000 in and you're making $250,000, but it won't do that even if your business costs $250,000. So there's no correlation between what you can earn and what you have to invest. It's just about finding the right business. So even if you found a business that you think makes good enough money, you may want to see if you could do it for, I don't know, half the cost of what you would have to pay to start that business. You might save yourself a lot of money. And then in terms of capital, how people typically pay for businesses, most people don't come out of pocket unless they're starting, I don't know, a small consulting type franchise or coaching type franchise. They typically use money from other places. Sometimes they'll do a home equity line of credit if they don't need a lot of money. Why? Because the interest rate is going to be a lot less than if you go through the SBA. It's true. And I've done programs with bankers before and they said, yep, it's true. But if you tell me you're looking for a business loan, I'm going to introduce you to the commercial lenders. The SBA program is great for bigger loans because you might not be able to get that much of a loan through your home equity line of credit. But lines of credit are great in general because it's just extra cash that you can access. You might not have a huge pool of money that you could put into the business, and you might not know exactly when you're going to make your first $100,000. So having a line of credit is a good thing for businesses to have anyway. But some people will actually initially fund their business using a home equity line of credit. Another thing that some people sometimes do is they have money in an IRA or 401k. There is a way to set up a new 401k through companies that are plan administrators and customize it so that you can issue stock from your company that you're starting and have that 401k or IRA buy that stock. And actually what that allows you to do is to access money in these qualified accounts without taking out a loan and without liquidating them. There's no penalty, there's no taxes. It's just a rollover, just as if you were buying stock if you were an employee of Freddie Mac and you were buying Freddie Mac stock as part of your 401k plan, it's the same thing. It's your company. You can buy stock in it. You might have to offer some of those shares to some of your managers, but this is a legitimate thing that's been around for years and years and years that a lot of people don't know about. Also, your local SBDC may have a micro loan program, but they are just that. They typically won't award enough money for you to just start a business. And that's another thing I would say is that if you're starting a business, some of that money that you're going to need to start is going to have to be yours, almost definitely. Could you take out, the home equity line of credit and fund the whole thing? Yes, but typically you're still going to have some of your own money to put into it. I think there's a big misunderstanding about, I want somebody else to fund my business. Banks typically want to see that you have some skin in the game too. It's true. Okay. But all these things are out there, maybe some of the things you didn't know about. So when to reach out for help, either to me or to the SBDC. When do you want to be in business is the question. I mean, if you want to be in business within the next 6 months, you should have started last week, maybe. And then there's this dark period, which I'm going to talk about too in Virginia. If you think if there's a chance that you might end up in some sort of retail business or restaurant business, you're probably not going to be in business for at least 12 months, if not more, from when you sign your franchise agreement. So don't wait too long to start your search. Okay. And I said, you're going to have some of your own money. At least 50,000 is kind of a rule of thumb, at least 6 months of personal living expenses. If you're going to go in to the business full time, that's from the time you start in your business. People do make money in their first year of business. Of course, not always, but sometimes. But you're going to want to have some living expenses set aside just in case your first big set of customers and clients doesn't happen right away. When I counsel people through that, I do want to talk to their significant others or spouses. Don't try to do something that's this level of commitment without consulting with them. Most spouses, and significant others are supportive, but they also want to know what's going on and be heard because they might have some requirements of the business that you didn't, think of, and they want, to us to consider that as well. And if you're going into business with a partner, there are a lot of other kind of pitfalls there. I'm not going to say don't do it. Just, be very careful. There's actually books written about going into business with a partner. Read through them. Also those books will guide you through kind of a rough partnership agreement to put together just to make sure that you agree on the main principles of how your business decisions are going to get made, what happens to the money, etc. I'm in business, one of my businesses, I'm in business with a partner, but neither of us need the money from that business. And so it works fine. But it could be very different, even though this is somebody that I know very, very well. I've known her for years. When you need that money to live off of, things sometimes get a little dicey. Don't forget too, yes, it's nice to have somebody else contribute to the startup costs. Yes. Yes, it's nice to have somebody else do some of the work, but don't forget, when the money starts coming in, you're going to be splitting that with somebody. So if you need to make, $100,000, $150,000 by year 2 or 3 in your business is going to have to make maybe twice that or 3 times that, depending on how many partners you have. So it's, don't forget that aspect as well. And this dark period in Virginia is a registration state. Every year, sometime in April or May, all of the franchises that want to expand in our state have to file with the State Corporation Commission in Richmond. So what that means for a lot of the franchises, they won't even talk to you. So in terms of when to research businesses, when you're looking at when do I start, when does it make sense to start, don't forget that there's going to be this dark period where a lot of franchises won't talk to you. You can't get started. You can't even come to their headquarters. They're going to be completely dark until they hear back from the state that they're able to offer franchise licenses again. So just keep that in mind. So that's about all I have. I'll take questions in a minute. I would say as far as next steps, I think Sheila's going to send you a brief evaluation. You can get a link to the recording. Thank you very much. And you can get the assessments. I'm going to give you this next slide where you can scan a QR code. And if you want to take the assessments, you can request them here. But take them when you're in that window. If you think you want to go into, if you think the business might not be a retail business, maybe you're interested in maybe one of the home-based work from home businesses, you can start that a lot quicker than a retail business. So, maybe if you want to start within that 3 to 6 month period from today, then take the assessments today. But if you think it's going to be a couple years from now, just wait and request the assessments at that time. But if you think you want to, it could be a restaurant, it could be a gym, it could be a tax business, it could be some other kind of retail business, a beauty salon or something like that. It could be easily 18 months from today before you can even open your doors. So you want to get that search going ASAP. Okay. And that is all I have. Let me see. Do we have any questions, Sheila, or did I
We
cover everything?
don't currently, so if any questions have come to mind, if you all will drop them into the Q&A box, we'll answer them right now. We still have 10 more minutes, so you can pick Heather's brain while we have her live. But I think you gave a lot of good information and we were pretty concise, so
Good.
I don't see anything dropping in. We'll just give another moment for questions. Of course, you can always reach out later if you have questions.
Yeah, it's a lot. And this is we do another program. If anyone is interested in learning more, but not quite ready to get started, I think we're doing another one again called trends and opportunities and obstacles, where I talk more about these trends in franchising. So if you're not quite ready, but you want to keep learning about it, watch this space for or get on my newsletter list for, because I always publicize any kind of speaking engagement I do for these. It's another free program, and just keep learning about the industries and what the next wave of franchise opportunities is going to be. It doesn't change drastically, but sometimes there are these little things. Like I said, one of the recent trends is with a lot more people investing in properties. And they don't want to do their own repairs. Whereas, our parents might have had some properties and they were going in and they were doing all the repairs themselves. This generation does not, for the most part, want to do that or have the ability to do that. So these property management franchises have seen a little bit of a boon.
We have a couple questions dropped in, and I also want to say that next webinar, yeah, I think we have that scheduled for September. I'll check that while you're answering a question and let everyone know. And then we'll actually be getting that out. So most people, I think, are on the email from SBDC with the webinars. So just go ahead and sign up for that as soon as we post it. We haven't posted it yet, but it is on our website. So the first question, do you have any insights on funding through the ROBs program?
The ROBS program, that's what I was referring to when I was talking about IRA and 401k rollovers. I've had dozens of clients fund their business that way. I don't see anything wrong with it. And supposedly there are some tax advantages when you're getting ready to sell your business because your business shares are being held in a qualified account. So I mean, it's kind of a mindset. Some people just they don't want all of the business startup costs to come from their own money. And so they rather do it through a loan, some of their own money, and then have a bank finance the rest. But then there are other people who don't want to pay a bank. I mean, just remember, when the dollars start coming in, some of those dollars are going directly back to the bank to pay off your loan, and you're paying interest on top of it. So it's kind of a personal decision, but I don't see anything. I've never personally experienced anything bad happening because people funded their business through one of the ROBS programs.
Next question. Do you have any thoughts about private equity firms buying franchises and causing financial burdens?
I mean, those of you who know me, I see a couple of people that I've talked to in the past. I see pros and cons to everything. I think you just have to weigh them. Private equity firms, I think for the most part, it's a positive thing for franchises because they get a big capital infusion that allows them to upgrade their technology a lot. It allows those franchises to grow more than the company could have done before the private equity firm came in. Of course, the other side of it is the private equity model contemplates the firms getting out within about 5 years. So, but I haven't really seen, I'm not a franchisee of a company that has personally experienced that, but I haven't noticed anything bad. But I'm sure in some cases there's a negative to the company eventually moving away from the firm. I think I see the net positive because I hear about the technology that they bring in. Again, especially a lot of this AI technology. A lot of the franchises are using it to, that's your chatbot. That's bringing customers in that may have dropped off your website because they were just looking for information, but they've got an AI chatbot that is kind of bringing them more into the conversation and getting them to finally click, hey, yes, please do contact me. That's my view on it.
And a note, the next webinar is going to be Thursday, November 21st. As soon as we get that set up, you'll get an email with that link. And I can set it up and send it out in the follow-up email that I send out with this recording too. So you can go ahead and jump on that. So let's see, next question. Where can I get marketing and demographic information about a particular area or county in Virginia to help me decide which area to set up a store unit?
Well, if you're talking about to set up a franchise, I'm going to say that that information comes from two places. It actually starts with talking with your franchisor. The franchisor, an experienced franchisor that's been with us, is, you know, a successful, experienced franchisor is going to be able to tell you why they believe that the territory that you're being offered is as good as their other successful territories. They should be able to give you specific information. They should be able to tell you it's because it has, you know, this many households that are making at least this much money, where the unemployment rate is that, I mean, it's going to be different for each franchise, or this many, if it's a B2B franchise, this many businesses in this area that are within this, you know, radius from where your location is. Um, you take that information then and you run it by the other franchisees. Now, I don't know if this person is asking about just a business, a marketing demographic information about uh, uh, where to set up a store. If it's not a franchise, you know, you're taking some guesses about, you know, what you would actually need to have a successful location with that business. But with a franchise, you start with the information from the franchisor and then you run it by other franchisees to make sure they agree that, yes, those are the right demographics, and it does or doesn't sound like your location is a suitable location. The franchisees are just, I can't emphasize enough how important a resource they are, because these are people who couldn't care less whether you join the franchise or not. So they're going to be real with you. Even the people who are the, you know, the top people in the franchise, they're going to tell you all the bad stuff too. And the reason is because when you join a franchise that I'm a part of, you're my colleague. I see you at meetings. We talk. I want my franchisor to bring in people who do well, who aren't constantly, you know, complaining and asking for help and using up all the time of my headquarters. I want my headquarters to be working for me. I also want people who are going to go out there and try some new things, share their success stories with me at meetings the way that I've shared with them. We want, you know, a healthy franchise family, a healthy environment. And so I'm going to, you know, help my franchisor. I don't work for them. But I'm going to be really real with the people who call me about the franchise, and tell them, you know, look, it's been good for me, but here's who doesn't do well, and here's what you should know going into it.
All right, we have one more question and we've got 2 minutes, so I think we got it.
Sure.
Can you please tell us about the taxation for the franchise business in 2 minutes?
Well, it's your business, and when you're a franchisee, it's your business. So you are taxed the same way that any other business is. The royalties that you pay to your franchisor, I believe they're always deductible because it's a business expense. The franchise fee, at least my CPA told me that it's deductible, but you have to amortize them, because if it's a 10-year agreement, you divide the franchise fee by 10, and every year you deduct 1/10 of it. I'm not sure. I'm not a CPA, so I don't want to give you more than I'm authorized or qualified to give you. But it's a business with the business expenses, just like any other business. One of your additional expenses is the fees that you pay to your franchisor.
Perfect. Okay. Do you have any last words of wisdom? And then I'll wrap us up.
Um, I don't. I mean, I would be happy to share with you anything else that you'd like to know. Feel free to contact me. You know, again, I know this is not for everybody, but if you are somebody who really has good reasons for going into business and you're just really afraid of missing something, I would love to help you find all the facts and do this smartly and make a great business decision, and be another successful business owner in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Heather, thank you so much. A lot of good information. I want to thank everyone who attended today. And a reminder that you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides. And I'll drop in the registration link for the upcoming webinar in November. If you would like to sign up for any other upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website, or reach out to Heather, of course, about franchise opportunities. So I want to thank everyone, and we do hope to see you all at our next session. Take care.